I'm here with former NHL player and two-time Stanley Cup winner Jamie Macoun, here to tell us about his time in the NHL. Hi Jamie. So, how many years did you play in the NHL and what teams did you play for during your career?
I played 17 years in the NHL. I started in Calgary in 1983, played until January of 1992, got traded to Toronto Maple Leafs and played there until February of 98, and then retired after a year and a half with Detroit.
So you played as a defenseman during your career and were known as being somewhat of a goon. Tell us about your role on the team.
I played a physical role. But I also was very fortunate because early on in my career I got into some fights and learned how to do some good hitting and what have you. So consequently, a lot of players around the league respected me for that. But in addition to that, I played over 20 minutes per game. So I didn't have to play the role like you see with some players nowadays, where they only play 5, 6, 7 shifts and they have to more or less look for a fight every time. I rarely fought in the last 14, 15 years of my career actually.
Tell me about how the game has changed since you were in the NHL compared to now.
Well, the first couple of years out of hockey, I had a hard time watching it. I would go to a game or two and then I'd end up kicking the person in front of me. And I was frustrated the way some of the plays happened. And I think the years that I played in the 80s maybe was the pinnacle, in my opinion, of hockey. It was a real man's game. You had to really respect your opponent and they had to respect you, and if not, you created that respect. But as it changed into the 90s, got a little too much hooking and holding. And one thing the league did do is they've taken out that hooking and holding. Now the referees are still in a bit of a quandary. They don't know what to call, what not to call. I wish there was a little bit more hitting, and I wish that the players didn't make it a part of their game to turn their back to each other, because typically what happens is almost every game someone gets hit into the boards from behind, and I just worry that someone's going to get seriously injured.
You played for Ohio State in college before moving to the big leagues. How did the change in atmosphere affect your gameplay?
Well, college was a step up from the junior that I was playing before. And Ohio State, if you're not familiar with it, it's the Ohio State. I mean, the football stadium holds 106,000 people. I mean, sports rules down there. I mean, education is huge, of course, but we had our own hospital, our own police force, our own fire department, our own sanitation department. So it was a little city. And so going from there and coming to the Calgary Flames, it was a big step, but it wasn't as big a step as coming from High River and going into the NHL. It was a great time. I loved being there, and I learned a lot while I was there.
What about the difference between home games and away games?
You know what? You find that it happens a lot in the NHL. Some teams play really well at home. Other teams play better on the road. And unfortunately, sometimes that comes down to how the fans react. You go into a place like Chicago where the fans are always up, they're always loud. Sometimes that's a hindrance to the Blackhawks because you're coming into from a team, let's say San Jose, where their fans might be a little bit quieter, or maybe the Calgary Flames where the fans are quieter. And suddenly you go there, the organ's going, the crowd is crazy. Even on your third game and fourth nights, you get up for it. It's a great thing. So for me, I love playing on the road because people didn't like the way I played. I used to hit their best players, and consequently I had lots of things said about me and said at me, and that just kept me in the game. So sometimes it was easier to play on the road for me.
It's every NHL player's dream to hoist the Stanley Cup, and you've done it twice. Tell us about that feeling.
Well, the first time was obviously incredible, and you might hear them say you don't realize how tough it is to actually get there. There's 30 teams in the league. Your odds in any given year are 30-1 against. And the good thing for me, or the fortunate thing for me, was my father and the whole family had gone through the trauma of losing my mother literally about 5 months before to cancer. So he had an opportunity to take time off of work. My dad and some of his friends went to almost every game. I think he went to over 20 games out of the 26 I think we played. And he happened to be in Montreal for the final game as well. So he came into the dressing room with me. And for me, the biggest part simply was that my dad was there. He had a chance to be in the excitement, to be in the dressing room, and he had champagne, sprayed on him and everything. And he still has a picture on his wall of him and his friends holding the cup in the old Montreal Forum.
You've played on multiple NHL teams, been teammates with some hockey legends. Looking back, can you tell us what your favorite memory was?
Oh Oh, geez, I don't think I can come up with a favorite memory. I think, the fact that back when Calgary had the team just humming along, we had such a great dressing room. And, you hear about stories about why aren't, in this case, why isn't Edmonton winning more games? They supposedly have all this talent. Sometimes it comes from the dressing room. I'm not saying it is, but sometimes it just comes from the dressing room. The ability to ramp up, the ability to crack the joke when you need to crack a joke. And we had 5 or 6 guys, maybe myself included, that knew how to keep the pulse of the team going the right way. And sometimes just sitting in there after a game or the next day when you're all banged and bruised and not feeling well at all, and having the banter go back and forth and the jokes made about who's fat, who's losing hair, who's ugly, all those sorts of great things that only guys say. I'm hoping only guys say. And those are the things that you remember for the rest of your life.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for taking time to sit down with us today. You gave us a real inside look into life as an NHL player.